Welcome to Steel Stories by US Steel. In this podcast, we explore the wealth of knowledge from leading industry experts to help you navigate the infinitely developing, renewable world of steel.
Welcome to another episode of Steel Stories. I'm David Kirkpatrick, your host. This is another one in our special series, Voices from the Valley. We have with us mayors of towns where US Steel has facilities who support the deal. Joining me today is Mayor Chris Kelly of West Mifflin, which is the town where the Irvin Works, which is the finishing plant, is located. And we also have with us Mayor Rich Lattanzi of Clairton, which is the home of the Clairton Works. That's the coke mill. Am I right about that?
Number one in the country.
Number one in the country. All right. That's a good way to think of it. Well, thank you both for being here and welcome. We're here to talk about why you support the Nippon-U.S. Steel deal, why you think it makes sense for Nippon to buy U.S. Steel. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. So maybe I could just start out with the basics. Maybe if I could start with you, Mayor Kelly, tell us why you support the deal and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself also, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I've been the mayor for 16 years. I've been around the steel industry my entire life. I've never worked in the mill, but I was a police officer in the borough of Homestead, which is one of the largest plants in U.S. Steel's history. And now in West Mifflin, we have the Irvin Works, and I am just trying to preserve the quality of life and preserve jobs that are located here in the valley. At first, I thought, well, wow, a foreign company wants to buy U.S. Steel, and playing my song, the law enforcement, but not on this side. But anyway, looking into it and speaking to the representatives from Nippon, I was very impressed with their philosophy, their history, the commitment to preserve the jobs, the salaries, the plants. And I'm just trying to do whatever humanly possible to preserve the jobs that are located in our community.
Right. And you feel confident that this is the best way to do it.
I know of no other option, and I know of nothing negative about the acquisition.
Okay, good. Well, we'll come back to some of these points. Thank you so much. So, Mayor Lattanzi of Clairton, you've been mayor for quite some time there, and I know you have a close connection to this whole story. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you support the deal.
Mayor Rich Lattanzi, I've been the mayor in Clairton for 15 years. I've been living in Clairton for 60 years. And I saw the bad times and I saw the better times, which is now. And I see the difference with the environment. I understand the process with the mill. I also worked at the Irvin Works for 30 years, and I was a union worker. And I also was a safety guy called JUM, which also worked for the union on protection of the guys through safety. So I see both sides. I'm near and dear to the union side of the story as well. But at the end of the day, I have to look and see what makes the most sense for the working class and for the Mon Valley in general. And I also support the deal because I think Nippon showed the resources and the willingness to invest in the Mon Valley, which I'm not so sure U.S. Steel had the same plan.
Right. Yeah. Just to quickly review that, Nippon has said it will spend $1.4 billion in aggregate for the first tranche for all the steelworker covered facilities of U.S. Steel, but they also made an additional commitment to invest $1 billion for a new finishing mill to upgrade or replace the Irvin Works, and they're in addition going to invest $300 million for a new blast furnace in Gary, Indiana. So they've made $2.7 billion worth of commitments to upgrade facilities in addition to the purchase price of the deal itself, which I believe is $14 billion. So that's a pretty big commitment. And you both have had dialogue with the company. Am I right about that?
I'm going to say yes. There's been some type of information or dialogue, correct, with me.
And you, Mayor Kelly, you had some good conversations with Nippon. Am I correct about that?
That's correct. And I've exchanged emails with the corporate leaders and had discussions with them on several occasions.
Now, I don't know, Mayor Lattanzi, were you on this trip to the Nippon facility that's not too far away?
Yes.
So you both have visited a Nippon Steel operation that's operated in the United States. Maybe you could just quickly talk a little bit about what that was like and what you learned there.
Well, my experience was a little different because I'm a little bit disability. And while everybody went on the walking tour, I had the opportunity to sit down with three of their top executives for about an hour and a half. not only talking about families, but their commitment to the community, the way they operate. I mean, when you get somebody that length of time and you talk personally, you learn a lot more about them. I was very fortunate to be invited on that trip.
And what did you come away feeling about what it's like to work for Nippon and how they might be as an employer in your community?
They're so damn polite. I mean, I'm in a steel mill and everybody's like happy. And I'm like, come on. It's filtered all the way down the line. I mean, we were greeted by a reception line, welcoming us, thanking us for coming. Thanks for participating. And then we also had the opportunity to speak to the residents that sat at lunch with us and a couple of business people. And they all had the same story. Without Nippon buying their plant in Follinsby, there would be no Follinsby. They lived through it before, and I've lived through it before at Homestead. So, I mean, I was very grateful to be part of that.
Well, thank you. Mayor Lattanzi, talk about what your experience was like.
Well, I also got to be involved in the trip, and I was very grateful as well because I wanted to do some fact finding. And when I went down, I was able to do the tour, and I saw the mill, which was in very good condition. Safety looked like it was taken seriously. I had the ability to talk to some of the workers where nobody kind of like said, hey, he's busy, you can't talk to them. And I asked some of the workers, hey, how's things going there? They said that things are good. And like I said, I don't think anybody like pre-schooled them or they had to say anything. They just were pretty happy with their job and what was going on. And then when we had the ability to have lunch with some of the workers, and a couple of the guys were speaking about the plant, and they were very adamant that they've been there since 2008 and they haven't missed a contract. And whenever they bring up safety, the company was more than happy to work with them. And if there was some suggestions about how they could do their job easily or more safe, the company also made some improvements there as well. So I think all in all, I got my answers. And then talking to the Japanese CEOs and the top people in line, when I asked them questions about the mill and all that, they looked me directly in the eye and answered my questions. And I believe they were very truthful. And one of the things that I asked, hey, would you guys be willing to come to the city of Clairton and let me show you my town and some of the needs that we have in Clairton? So if you do buy this mill, that we have a relationship and you understand what Clairton's about. Lo and behold, it was only about 2-3 weeks later, I got a phone call that they wanted to come up and do a tour of Clairton. So I believe these guys are very genuine and they were very polite. And like I said, they looked me right in the eye when I asked questions. There was nothing like they were trying to hide something or they didn't have an answer. And I believe that with them and what they did down in Follinsby, they saved that mill. I really do believe they saved that mill.
It sounds like you both feel like that's what's going to happen to the mills in your town if this deal goes through, that this is the best way to save them and keep them operating and keep the employment and keep the tax revenues, et cetera. Am I right in understanding that you really have looked at all the options and from what you conclude, this seems like the best bet?
I agree on that. I agree that the Japanese Nippon, if they come in, I believe that they're going to make the investments and take care of the union like they promised. And I think U.S. Steel was probably apprehended or slowed down by maybe the county trying to get some permits for some of the improvements they want to do. I think Nippon would be like a breath of fresh air, and I think the county would be willing to work with them. Maybe there's some animosity there in the past, but I think it's a fresh start, and I look for big things to come for the Mon Valley.
Thank you. Mayor Kelly, what about you? What do you think of that?
Well, you said it when you mentioned the amount that they want to put into the Irvin Works in addition to the purges. $1.4 billion. To put it in perspective, Allegheny County has 130 municipalities that are serviced by the county. Their entire budget is 1.04. So the investment into the Irvin Work is bigger than the entire Allegheny County budget. That's huge. We have to consider what the amount of money. I mean, people throw around billions anymore like it's nothing. And our state budget is only $45 billion, and this is going to be like $17-18 billion just by purchasing U.S. Steel. That's fantastic. That's great for the economy. It's great for the legacy of the workers.
Okay, well, that's well said, both of you. Let's just talk quickly about what it's been like to be mayor of a town with a major U.S. Steel facility in it, because I know that there's a lot of close connection between the community and the company. Mayor Lattanzi, you want to start, and then we'll go to you, Mayor Kelly. What's it like being the mayor of a town with a giant U.S. Steel facility?
I've been the mayor for 15 years, and I've probably been in about 2 or 3 documentaries, 1 movie, a couple different things. I've had people from Italy, from Greece, from Germany come in that do stories about the city of Clairton and the mayor, and of course, U.S. Steel. Everybody wants to know what U.S. Steel's up to. And of course, the pictures in the magazines always have the mill behind us. And like I said, for myself in the city of Clairton, we were on Act 47 for 29 years. We were cited by the state because we didn't have enough funding to pay our bills. U.S. Steel is 30% of our tax base. Without U.S. Steel, we, number one, lose our identity. And number two, we'd be back on Act 47. We couldn't pay our bills. So other than them just being a mill with tax money and a big plant for Clairton and our identity, they're also a great community partner. There's sometimes we have shortfalls here where I could pick up the phone and say, hey, we just had a bad snow. We don't have enough resources. And he says, all right, we'll send a couple trucks up with you guys. I don't think too many people have that opportunity to have a business partner like we do with U.S. Steel. And I don't think the city of Clairton would be the same without them.
Well, thank you. Mayor Kelly, what's it like in West Mifflin?
I got to tell you, it is pleasurable dealing with a large corporation like this, with the U.S. Steel work in Irvin Works. The donations they make back to the community, playgrounds, pavilions, parks, and the workers come out and intermingle with all the residents. It's a fantastic situation. The workers are excited to give back. We're not in the same situation as Mayor Lattanzi with our tax base. We're a little larger and we have a commercial area. So losing it, though, with 900 jobs walking out would be a huge hit for our taxpayers. But with that tax would either be cut service or increase the tax. So the sale goes through and it's going to spur other jobs. I mean, you put that money in there, other people are going to go into the mill, the cursory jobs, the workers, the lunches, the restaurants, everything. There's nothing negative about this.
Yeah. And you're pretty convinced that if this deal doesn't happen, those jobs and that mill could really be in jeopardy.
I believe, based on the history. Again, I was chief of police in Homestead when they said, we're going to close. Nobody believed them. Next thing we know, not only was the mill closed, but the stores in the commercial district went with them. So yeah, I believe them when they say, we don't have the money to modernize this. And it's going to affect it. If they don't modernize it, jobs are going to wear out.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mayor Lattanzi, about what a closure would mean in Clairton.
Like I said before, I worked there for 30 years. I'm still in a golf league with some of the active workers and retirees. And some of the people said, Mayor, you ought to be glad you got out when you did. We've been doing nothing but put Band-Aids on things. So I think U.S. Steel always being curtailed by the county or regulations. They're just afraid to make an investment because they're afraid to be shut down or just no support. So I just believe that if this sale doesn't happen, U.S. Steel will run it until it can't run anymore and just say, hey, we tried. We'll see you guys later. Thank you for a great relationship.
I think we've got most of this covered here, but I want to just, before we wrap, ask you both to talk about this comment that many people make that we want U.S. Steel to stay American owned and we can't let Japan own it because they're not American. How do you both feel about that? Maybe start with you, Rich, Mayor Lattanzi.
First of all, like I said, a lot of people don't like change, especially elderly people. They're set in their ways and no one's changed. I'm sure when the computers and all that come out, a lot of people said, oh my God, this is crazy. But I mean, change is something that we all have to face. So not knowing down the road what's going to happen, I can understand the concern. And believe me, my union brothers and sisters, I want to see them all work and I want to see the Mon Valley work. But like I said, there's always that unknown about down the road what it's going to be like. So I understand that. And I do believe that moving forward, we have other foreign companies, maybe 20 or 30 in the United States that are running companies that people don't even know. But they seem to be working. And I remember when I was a child, my father and my uncles would say, if anybody buys a foreign car, you're not in this family no more. Don't come to my house for dinner. Well, here we are 50, 60 years later. Foreign cars just made everybody else more competitive and made them put out a better product. So competition's good and it made everybody else be better. So that's pretty much all I had to say with that.
Thanks so much. Mayor Kelly, what would you say about that? Only American company should own this argument.
Does anybody in their right mind think that there's going to be a transcontinental cruise ship and all the workers in these plants are going to be Japanese? There's still going to be American products, American manufacturers, American employees working under the American system. This is no threat. It's just a change of name. And this baloney about national security, where was the national security when Nippon bought the plant in Folensby? Did somebody fall asleep and just let that slide through, or has it become a political reason? It's still going to be U.S. Steel, American made.
Okay, well, you're both so clear about this. I really appreciate it. Here's my last question. Why do so many people oppose this deal? You guys have had a lot of discussions, I'm sure, with people who do oppose it in your community, and maybe some of the elected officials who have spoken out against it. What do you think is their thinking?
All right, so I was a union guy for 30 years, and obviously there's some things in the mill that you got to file grievances or you got to get help with, and you got to stay strong when you're in. And I'm sure the union guys, especially at the top, they got to show a presence of being strong, and we're not going to be easy. We're not going to make it easy on anyone. They're just doing their job. They're protecting the union workers. But in this case, most of the workers that I talk to on the lower end of the union right now are for it. And the guys at the top, maybe they're looking to get a step up somewhere, and they're not going to get any step up or any kind of accolades if they're weak on this. So they got to do what union guys do. We got to put up a fight, and we got to get what's best for everyone. So I just believe that they're saving face. And I believe that if you talk to most of the majority of the workers that work in the plant, the younger guys in particular, they want to keep working and they're willing to take a chance on the pawn. So I'm going to say it's about politics, it's about saving, and about who's the strongest.
Thank you. And Mayor Kelly, I think you have talked to a lot of other officials who are opposed to it. What do they say to you? What arguments do they make?
You have individuals that are state officials and the federal officials from our state agreeing that we should shut this place down or stop the sale that's going to cost Pennsylvania jobs. That's ridiculous. So announced it on Labor Day in Pittsburgh, and nobody catch on to the fact that, wait a minute, you're talking about losing jobs here where the parade's at. They're not being called out on why, other than it's a foreign country. Well, their headquarters in North America is in Houston. And the last time I checked, Houston was in Texas. This is just BS, calling it like it is. But it's not fair to the workers that are sitting there with twisted guts thinking, am I going to have a job? Am I going to be able to afford my house payment? Things of those natures.
Okay, well, I think you both have said great things. And let's say the deal goes through. Nippon owns the plants in your community, both of your communities. What kind of a world do you think may happen then?
And I'll start out with the city of Clairton. If Nippon would buy U.S. Steel, I would love to see them to be engaged in the city of Clairton and be a good community partner. I would like to see them open up some type of program where we could get some young kids right out of high school some jobs and some training to get them into the workforce. And also, I would like to see them make some kind of commitment to the union, maybe even to do a 2-year extension on the contract, just to get everybody more time to get acclimated with each other and feel more comfortable to invest like they said they were in the Mon Valley and to revive the Mon Valley. So more jobs and better housing and better condition for the cities and the boroughs to run their towns.
And from your conversations with them, you don't think those things are crazy and some of that stuff might really happen. Is that what you hope for?
I think it's reasonable.
Thank you. Mayor Kelly, what about you?
I'm going to go back to the $1 billion investment. That's going to create a lot of jobs to put that $1 billion to good use. And that's going to increase their commitment to the communities. So far, they've been a good neighbor. We're going to have the same people that are community-minded. Our residents are still going to work in the mill. I think that will increase. And I seen what they did down in Fallensby. And they're a small town, and they benefited so much. And how they wrap themselves around is, we're here in your community. We want to be part of your community. And I don't see any change coming from that.
So you expect something like that will be what you'll find in West Mifflin too?
I think we'll be able to pick up the phone, call them and say, hey, we need this, just like Rich did there with the snow removal. I believe we can call them at any time and get what we need if it's a proven emergency. Yes.
Yeah, it is really striking to me. And I've talked to Mr. Maury myself, and the willingness they are showing to do whatever it takes to keep the community and the shareholders and the union satisfied is really quite impressive, I have to say. So I've been very impressed by that too.
U.S. Steel a few years ago made a commitment in Clairton that they were going to do a cogeneration plant. They were going to take the emissions and they were going to turn it into energy and electric and put it back on the grid and all that. And that was going to reduce the pollution by 50%. So that's one thing that I want to say, and I lost a train of thought, but that would be so important to the city of Clairton. It'd be an environmental commitment, and it also would be something useful to go ahead and take that emissions and turn it into energy. So that would be something great for the city.
Yeah. One of the things I meant to say before is because Nippon is 3 times the size of U.S. Steel, they have a lot of resources, and they say they are more advanced than any global steelmaker in terms of coming up with new energy efficient and lower emissions alternatives to making steel using hydrogen and other kinds of changed processes. So it does seem quite possible and likely even that they will bring some of that technology and investment to the steel. So that kind of thing sounds plausible. Well, I feel this has been a wonderfully elucidating, eye-opening conversation, one that really helps me understand the community reaction to the steel. You've both been very generous with your time. I thank you so much for taking the time. So for our listeners and viewers, please come back for the next edition of Steel Stories. I'm David Kirkpatrick. We'll see you next time.
Steel Stories is brought to you by US Steel. To find out more about our sustainable steel solutions and how our Best for All strategy allows us to re-envision the future alongside our customers, visit www.ussteel.com. Search for US Steel in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss a future episode. On behalf of the team here at US Steel, thanks for listening.